Hi, I'm Joe with JTV. Today we're going to be talking about what makes pearls special and the different varieties. We start with the Akoya pearl, which is in the northern waters, typically near Japan, a little bit colder. And then we go into the South Seas, which are warm and tropical, where we have the three, I call them superstars of the South Sea world. We have the Pinctada maxima white lip from Australia. We have the Pinctada margaritifera from French Polynesia, Tahiti, Bora Bora, which is slightly less rare than the Australian pearl. And then we have the Philippine golden pearl, which is the rarest of the South Sea golden pearls. Now let's talk about size. You know, in the Akoya world, pearls start at 4.5 and they pretty much max out at about 8, sometimes 9 millimeter, which is a really overachieving oyster if that happens. But in the South Sea world, with the Australian whites, with the Tahitian blacks, and with the Philippine goldens, we're starting at about 8 millimeters. Every now and then you get some 6 millimeter sizes, which are, by the way, really highly prized because a lot of people feel more comfortable wearing an earring of 6 millimeter than, say, an 8 millimeter South Sea cultured pearl. But even so, these oysters, because of where they're located and their species, produce really large pearls in the pearl world. So we're talking about the Pinctada maxima, and the name says it all. It's the largest pearl-bearing oyster in the world. These can reach the size of, just by comparison, a dinner plate. That's how big they can get. They're in warmer waters and they grow very rapidly. So the pearls are going to be basically about the same size for each of the three oysters, except for the fact that the white Pinctada maxima Australian produces the largest of all pearls. They've gotten pearls out of these oysters as large as 30 millimeters. Doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. In the Pinctada margaritifera case, which is the Tahitian pearl, you're going to have pearls that are probably about 8 to 15, 16 millimeters. Sometimes they get larger, but that typically is the range that they fall into. The golden South Sea pearl, the Pinctada maxima gold lip oyster, will produce similarly to the Australian in that it will produce 8 millimeter typically to start with, to 24 to 26 millimeters, and those are quite rare. I have held a 26 millimeter golden South Sea pearl with all the 5 factors being perfect. It was magnificent. Size is really an amazing feature of pearls. What we take for granted when we hold a completed strand in our hands took a lot of time, effort, and skill, and of course, the work of the oyster, which is a really, really strong partner in this whole process. 14 millimeter, which is what this strand finishes at, it starts at 10 and graduates up to 14 millimeter, is a fairly uncommon size. It doesn't always come out of the oyster. You could take 2 oysters from the same family, you can put the same size nucleus in each of them, you could care for them, tend them for 3.5 years, and at the point of harvest, one will produce a 10 millimeter, one will produce a 14. Why did that happen? We don't know. It's just the way nature works. But it also depends on how well it's cared for. So in the world supply of pearls, when you see a size of 14 millimeter or larger, that's really extremely rare. It creates a great foundation for a strand. And one thing that most folks don't know is that strands are built in pairs, but you start at the very last pearl in the very center, because there's usually an odd number of pearls to create a strand unless it's a complete strand of non-graduated or uniform size. So we start with the pearl at the base. Then we build pairs from that. Now the pairs could start from the top or the bottom. It all depends on the harvest. So you might have a pearl strand that took years to create. I had once the privilege of holding a strand that took 30 years to make because we were producing pairs from 18 millimeters to the final pearl, which was 24. Amazing, amazing size for that pearl. And each of these pearls was gorgeous and of the highest quality. So think about that. When you see a strand, I like to joke a little bit about it. You know, there isn't just, a bowl of pearls that we just randomly take out and string a strand like, whoa, like we're stringing popcorn on the tinsel or on a Christmas tree. No, that's not how it goes. We have to build these with the 5 criteria: size, shape, color, skin purity, and luster. You have to match all of these pairs. And these pairs could have been earrings, frankly, at one point, but no, they're going to be a strand now. So you match each of these pairs until you finally get this completed strand. You just don't know how long it takes. Now, could I tell you how long this took to string? No. I'd have to be watching it from the time it came out of the oyster. But take for granted that this is a time-consuming process that involves a lot of skill, a lot of experience, showing you a strand that's gorgeous and lasts a lifetime. And you can love it just as I do. So after size, we talk about shape. So shape is really important. For the most part, it's pleasing to the eye to have as much round-shaped pearls as you can. And every time we start the culturing process, our goal, for the most part, is to create a round pearl. But a lot of factors go into the pearl being round, one of which is the nucleus, of course. So the nucleus is always round unless it's desired to be a different shape. But in the cultured South Sea pearl world, typically it's a round nucleus. The nucleus is going to be anywhere from 5.5 to 8 millimeters, depending upon the size of the oyster, which graft we're talking about, and how essentially we're trying to create strands. Because pearls are really so unpredictable as far as the harvest goes. You could have a very large oyster that's been well cared for in the ideal environment, and it makes a small pearl, but a really nice one. Or you could have an oyster that's been in rough waters, it's had a lot of environmental challenges, and it creates a big, beautiful 15, 14 millimeter pearl, and it's fantastic. So you just never know. The main shapes for these pearls, and it's based on a lot of factors, one of which is how you treat the oyster when it's in the water, is going to be round, semi-round, oval or button-shaped, or baroque. And there are semi-classifications to these, of course, round, semi-round, button, semi-button, baroque, semi-baroque. It just depends. And then there's a special pearl shape called cercle, which is where there are actually ridges on the surface of the pearl. It's much easier to see in a Tahitian pearl, and much more known for it, really, because they're prized, and they're wonderful, and they feel terrific. But in Tahitians, it's a really beautiful effect in particular, because cercle pearls feel fantastic when you wear them. You find yourself always touching them absent-mindedly through the day because they have a great feel. All South Sea pearls have weight to them because of their nature, and they're very calming. So you might even think of these as a calming pearl, which I love to talk about. But again, the most common shape we're going for is round, or a sort of a round pearl. And that creates the most pleasing to the eye. They're fantastic. But again, in a harvest, you never know what you're going to get. So it's important to remember, when you're looking at pearls, what do you love about pearls is what you should be buying.